Last week, we talked with Jerry about how to approach teasers, some advice on that, how to approach the gigantic Patriots line against the Miami Dolphins. Well, we've got two huge lines in the National Football League again. This week, we'll take a look at a great college football slate, and we welcome in on the Progressive Insurance Hotline, Jerry Bow, at Jerry Bow Knows, with a Z on Twitter. Give him a follow if you don't already. He's the host of Moneyline on KFNC in Houston. You can also check out his work on sportsmap.com. Jerry, what's going on, man?
I'm doing good. SB Nation, we meet again another week to make some more money.
That's right. That's right. How did things go? How did this past week go for you on the college and NFL route?
College, I did all right. NFL, I made some money more on the primetime games. That's a big focus going forward here, and we'll talk quite a bit about primetime games in the NFL. But overall, it's been a successful season. I'm hitting at about 57% right now, and I play a very high volume. I'm almost at about I got about 98 games worth of football bets already, and I'm hitting at 57%, so I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah, that'll play. That'll work out just fine. So let's look at the NFL, and then we'll get to some college football. The NFL, I mean, this has been a big story through the first couple weeks, is just wondering where these lines are going to settle on games involving the Dolphins and now games involving the Jets as long as Sam Darnold is out. And you look at the Jets-Patriots. Last check, the Patriots are 22.5-point favorites at home against the Jets. We know they had no problem covering the number last week against the Dolphins. How do you approach these huge lines that we're seeing that really we're not normally seeing 2 in 1 week in the National Football League?
You won't make a living betting this league taking favorites that big, right? But keep this in mind. This hasn't happened since 1987 where there was 2 favorites of plus 20 points. Needless to say, neither of those covered. Now, you just say individually, since 1984, there's been 8 teams favored by 20 or more points. 0-8 against the spread. Okay, now you say, why are these lines so historically big? One, of motivation. If you have to handicap motivation at the beginning of a season, usually we use that towards the end of the year, right? One team is checked out, one's playing for playoffs. That's a different story. But when you have it from just everyone's checking out at the beginning of a year, how do you handicap that? So they throw up a number so big, the books, knowing, hey, I don't think we're going to see any Miami money. So it doesn't matter how big we throw it, and they're allowed to throw up, and let's call it a fake number, just saying, let's see if anybody bites at this number, because last week we got bit throwing out a number that was too low, and you saw what New England did. So they're not taking that risk anymore. But again, you're never going to make money in this league if you bet favorites that big of spreads. But what kind of Patriots team do you see here? Did it have something to do with Belichick going against one of his old assistants and losing to one the prior year? Did that have something to do with it? Did it have something to do with Miami beating them on that Hail Mary, when Gronk was out there playing defense? Did that have something to do with it? What is the mentality this week? Because we know what he thinks about the Jets. We know that he's gone out and said that was one of the last teams that he ever traded with in the league because the way he feels towards them. So do you think that he not wants to go out there and stomp them into the ground? Because he had Brady out there when they were up 35-plus points.
So are you you recommend staying away from Jets, Patriots, and the Dolphins, Cowboys because that number is so high?
It is, but again, I can't see myself trying to say, because that word sharp is overused, because just because a guy's sharp, they say the sharp side. Mm-hmm. Well, just those are bigger pockets. There's guys out there that got big pockets and are gamblers. So those move lines as well. So when we use that sharp word, it's really loosely used nowadays. We don't rely on it so much per se. And that's what it is right now, because sharp people are saying, take the Jets at the big line, take the big points. But are they really going to go up to that betting window and do that with confidence?
We're talking with Jerry Bow, at Jerry Bow Knows, with a Z on Twitter. He's the host of Moneyline in Houston on KFNC. You can also check out his work on sportsmap.com. He normally joins us each and every Tuesday here on the Gold Standard. And one of the games, we'll get to the primetime ones in a second, but that I think a lot of people are focusing on that could be the game of the weekend. Lamar Jackson against Patrick Mahomes. Baltimore 2-0, Kansas City 2-0. It's the two quarterbacks that have not thrown a pick right now, 7 touchdowns to none. The Chiefs 6.5-point favorites for their home opener, but have you noticed that total, Jerry? It was at 55 or 56. I just saw it's down to 52.5.
Well, see, it's going up and down. It's like a seesaw action, and that's what you get in sports gambling. A line is opened, and then it was hammered at 51.5. It hammered all the way to 55. Whenever you see line move early, that's what they get, and they use those sharps. But I'll say big pockets. So let's use that term for the rest of this season. Big pockets come in, they move that line, and then they went to the over. So it kind of took some value out of the over. Now it's leveled down again. But what do you get in this matchup? What's changed from last year? I can't see the Baltimore defense stopping Kansas City. Although their box scores have told you different, and someone just looking at the overviews thinking, man, the Ravens are unstoppable. Their defense is stout. I think Kansas City is unstoppable. They, in this instance, I'm telling you, I'm pounding Kansas City team total. I'm taking the over as well, and I'm glad it settled back at that 52.5. I'm hoping I could get to 52. But take Kansas City in this matchup because we've seen. Everyone wants to talk about Lamar Jackson, but we haven't seen too much intermediate stuff. That first game, it was small passes to the house. This next game, you're seeing a lot of deep throws, but what about the intermediate stuff? Whenever he has to play out of script, because everything for the Ravens has been in script. What happens when they have to play out of script? What happens if Kansas City punches in the mouth 10-0? How does he play? Not to say he can't, but how does he play catch up there? Because Mahomes is not letting off the gas. Give me the Chiefs. Also, the Chiefs are over 6-2 in the last 8 regular season games. Keep that in mind. 6-2 in the last 8 games. Give me the Chiefs team total and the over.
Thursday night football. That's tomorrow night. Titans and Jags. The line's been anywhere from 1.5 to 2. Jalen Ramsey looks like he is going to play in this game. How do you approach this one? And then we'll move on to some college.
This is the hold your nose special. That's how you approach this. You do it with a little embarrassment, and you say, what am I doing here from a gambling standpoint, from a fan standpoint, from just overall, what am I going to do on a Thursday night watching the Titans and the Jaguars? Well, just thinking like that, the under, right? Everything has to tell you the last 3 times in this series was under as well. I don't see how these teams are going to move the ball on each other. Give me the under in a game that I'll be playing very, very, very small. But for the sake of my degenerate betting heart, give me the under.
I'm with you. Jerry Bow, at Jerry Bow Knows on Twitter. He's the host of Moneyline on KFNC in Houston. You can also check out his work on sportsmap.com. It was a weak college football slate last weekend. You look ahead, though, we've got some great matchups. What's one or two you want to focus in on here? The big one that everybody's talking about is Georgia and Notre Dame, where Notre Dame's 2 touchdown dogs on the road.
And that's the thing. So just because a game is good to watch, like the matchup's good on paper, doesn't mean from a betting standpoint it'll be the same. And in this one, I like to think, what's the first thing whenever someone, say, arrives in Vegas, someone that's not a full-time gambler, nothing like that, someone's there to have a good time. They're going to walk up there and they're going to see Notre Dame getting all those points. And they're going to go up there and punch a Notre Dame ticket. But I can't see how Notre Dame's going to beat Georgia when they're so undersized. They are outsized on the offensive line to that defensive line by 60 pounds per person. It's an average about 60 pounds. So what happens here if Georgia comes out and gets a lead and Notre Dame has to play from behind? Now, Notre Dame has its weapons, but I don't trust the coaching standpoint from here. From either side, I'll be staying away, but history tells you Georgia's 22-9 versus the spread the last 31 games. So everything tells you Georgia's going to cover 14 points. That leaves the back door open. I can't honestly tell you punch a 14-point ticket. I'm going to play this on a 10-point teaser mixed with some other games that I can give you later on.
Auburn, Texas A&M. This one in College Station. First big road SEC game for Bo Nix, the freshman quarterback, at Auburn. 3.5-point dogs to the Aggies.
You said it right off the top, what I needed to know. His first true road game, this is where we find out who he is. Now, we know who the Aggies are. Jimbo, 13-3 spread run with the Aggies. 8-1 at Kyle Field. And us being this close here, where I'm from, Houston, we know what Kyle Field is as far as home field advantage. Throw in what you started this off with, a freshman going into that environment. Give me the Aggies in a game that people are going to look at Auburn and they're going to think, man, yeah, Auburn's beat Oregon. I'm not sure that Oregon wasn't the better team that night. And I'm not sure that A&M doesn't have the right ingredients to stop them. One, The number one ingredient, stopping the run, because that's going to make the freshmen have to throw, and we know A&M can do that. So knowing that, do you trust the freshman going into Kyle Field? I don't do it. Give me the Aggies.
Over in the Big Ten, we got Michigan and Wisconsin, and I really like what I've seen from Wisconsin so far. Now, they had an off week this past week. Jonathan Taylor is a legit Heisman candidate. He's been incredible so far this year. At home, the Badgers are 3.5-point favorites, and the last time we saw Michigan was against Army, and it wasn't pretty offensively, to say the least. But a week off here, they're 3.5 points on the road. What do you like about this Michigan-Wisconsin game? I don't know. The total as well, I think, is attractive to a lot of people at 44.
Okay, let me ask you, what attracts you about that 44?
For me, I'm looking at the under.
Exactly, but what was your first thought?
First thought is that Michigan's offense, Shea Patterson, not going to be able to do much against Wisconsin's defense.
So let's start right there. I'm on the same page with you. Now, we know I just like to think from someone else's perspective, and then I like to throw my narrative in. And exactly what I've been hearing all week is exactly what you said. Throw that in with Harbaugh 1-7 versus the spread his last 8 games away. So he's not very good away. We already know that. I don't trust him. How can you trust this Michigan team with what they've shown this season? How can you go against Wisconsin in this spot? Now, the Badgers, 1-6 as chalk at home last year. That's what hurts.
Yeah.
That's why I'm staying away. 1-6 as chalk in Madison. So it's scary. I'm going to stay away. Everything tells you from a gambling standpoint that you take Michigan here because it's the ugly bet. And I just can't do that here. A lot of times, like last Thursday, whenever the Panthers were playing the Buccaneers, I said, just take the ugly bet here. Nothing tells me other than take the ugly girl out for a date one time. And on this date right here, this Michigan-Wisconsin being, everything tells you from my years that this is where Michigan somehow pulls this off or keeps it within. Nah. Don't do it. I'm passing because I can't bring myself to bet Harbaugh like that. 1-7 in his last 8 away.
Yeah, Shea Patterson. I mean, it just has not been pretty watching the Wolverines. But that's one of the games certainly we'll be focused in on, at least watching this afternoon. But maybe some advice there just to stay away from it. All right, Jerry, just a minute or so left with you here as this always flies by. We got so much we could talk about. What's another game or two that maybe you want to focus in on here, NFL or college, that some people should be keeping an eye on?
Let me just give you a trend right here, something to think about. The under went 3-0 last week in primetime games in NFL, and they were way under. So that's basically now the under is 6-1 this year in those primetime games. That's about 85% winners. The last time that you saw something crazy like this was in 2013, where in primetime games, the over was 56%. The next year, it went 66%. And then in 2015, you saw it drop drastically to 41%. So in other words, everything usually levels out. Last week, the books 8. How many games went over out of that slate? 3. The over-under was 3-12, 12 unders. The books 8. This under keeps hitting. At one point, it's got to level out. Look for the numbers to level out. Hit the overs. Last week, the top 5 overs on the board in NFL all went under.
Wow. Okay. I was a beneficiary of those unders, I'll be honest. So, okay. So now you're telling me I need to switch things up this weekend, huh?
Yeah, so not exactly switch it up, but just be careful on that. And also, one thing before we get out of here again, back to teams that started the year off, back-to-back road games, have been bad bets when they have that home opener in week 3. 29% winners since 2003. And then this week you have the Chiefs in that position, the Bills, the Colts, and the 49ers. I'll leave you with that.
No, fantastic stuff. Jerry Bow, at Jerry Bow Knows with a Z. Give him a follow on Twitter. Also check him out on Sundays. He's host of Moneyline on KFNC in Houston, as well on sportsmap.com. Jerry, great stuff as always, man. Gear up for tomorrow night. We'll talk some more then.
Let's make some money. Good luck to everyone.
Fantastic from Jerry Bow out on the Progressive Insurance Hotline. Quote, buy and save on home insurance with Progressive's Home Quote Explorer, only at Progressive.